You hear cancer and you always think, oh,
Chemo,
chemotherapy, radiation. Yeah. Now you hear more about immunotherapy. But I mean, science has come so far, you know, and it's only because of this, there was this huge project, the Genome Project.
Yes.
It's because of that now there's so much out there, so much data out there, that there are, these medicines that exist that target just those rogue cells.
Wow. Welcome to another episode of Find Your Calm. I'm really excited about this episode today because we recently partnered with this organization through our product line, Decompression Realm, as a collaborative partner. And I really love what they're doing. And the CEO behind the brand, the Gaggler, has an amazing story to tell. So I'm really excited to dive in and have this very intimate one-on-one conversation. So everyone, here is Monica Malhotra.
Yes. Thank you so much, Yanchi, for inviting me on the show. I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. So, I mean, let's dive right in. So, your background, you had a very strong corporate background. So that you work with some like huge companies before starting the Gaggler. So let's talk about what that transition looked like for you.
Yeah, so that transition was over a period of time. So I was with a lot of different corporates in the US and the UK. And when I moved to Dubai, I actually moved with the intention of setting up my own business, which was actually in education. Oh. So the Gaggler came, a few years later. But I ran that business from about 2010 to about 2018. And that was my first dig at, entrepreneurship. Yeah. And then it's only after that I opened up the Gaggler in 2020, so 2 years later.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So why the Gaggler? Like what was that? Because going from the early education, tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a very different. So what I learned, I think, with my first experience, I love education. I have a lot of passion for it. I think it can change lives. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to still educate. Yeah. But do it in a more digital format, and I think it's funny to say this now, but like I think the reason why I loved doing the early years education business was because it sort of was a persona that replicated me, so I was a young mother with young kids, and it kind of fit that lifestyle. I'm not saying you should match your businesses with your lifestyle, but it kind of feels now that that's what it was. Yeah. And then as my kids got older and they're going into school, I just didn't have the same, I would say, not drive, it just made interest, yes. I started to think, okay, I've done this for like 8 years now. I think I want to try something else. Right. And so I've always been very, very interested in, like I'm a chronic like researcher, so like anytime I'm talking to somebody and they say something and it doesn't sound familiar, I'm like, okay, I just put that in the back of my head and I'm like, okay, I'm going to Google that later. Yep. And I spend hours on Google. So so I've always had this thirst for knowledge just for the sake of it, you know. And I kind of wanted to put that, and I didn't really find like there was much out there in terms of wellness and well-being. And for women here, like I felt a lot of our references came from the Western world. And, life here is different. I mean, the stresses are different. Right. The cultural context is different. I mean, some of the, family stress and cultural stress that you get here, you won't necessarily see that in places like the US or the UK. It's just so different. It is. So I kind of wanted to create something that was relevant for that context. Right. And so I launched the Gaggler as purely a content site focused on women's wellness and topics that related to well-being, and in particular relevant to the UAE market.
It's beautiful. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. I mean, and I love this because this is women working in wellness, no competition, right? It's collaboration.
No, absolutely. Right. So the e-commerce came actually 2 years later. So I launched that after I came back, because, we talked about this earlier. I was hospitalized last year, and so I came home in November. And then December, we actually, with the team coming together behind me, we launched our e-commerce site. So that's much more of a newer phase for the company, but that's been the transition.
Yes, and I love it. I mean, it's been a great partnership thus far. So you just mentioned about being hospitalized last year. So let's touch into that, because I know that you were diagnosed with a rare form of lung cancer.
That's right. Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. I mean, I've always been a very healthy individual. Like, the chronic colds and coughs don't really quite get me down.
Right.
And I had a great summer, with my family in the States, and I flew back and at the end of August, for the kids to join school, and started to just, have a little bit of a cough, a dry cough, and thought nothing of it. I think as women, we always sort of cast aside, our issues or whatever, but it really wasn't, like, there was no other symptoms. So I didn't really think too much of it, thought it would just pass. And then by the time October came around, it was much more frequent, and became kind of a daily thing that my husband actually said, are you going to go and get that looked at? Like, you've been coughing since we got back. And I hadn't realized it.
You were just going.
I was just going. I'm like, it'll pass. There's nothing else. No other symptoms. Otherwise, if it was my kids coughing, I mean, I'd be like,
all
take this, take that, the hot tea, the vitamin C. You know how we are, right? I mean, it's just crazy. So he's the one that kind of brought it to my attention that I let it go quite a bit, and it just was getting worse. And so I did make an appointment with a doctor, and the initial diagnosis and the medications they gave me were for pneumonia, because that's what it kind of looked like with the x-rays and whatnot. And a few days later, I had to go into the ER just because I couldn't breathe. I was breathing, but didn't feel like I could take enough air, or had enough oxygen in my body. So went into ER thinking they changed my medications. And funny, now I laugh about it, but I actually was scheduled that weekend. So this was on a Friday, I was hospitalized. And that on Sunday, I was supposed to be part of a pretty large fitness conference, and one of the lead, in fact, moderators for a panel. And I literally thought, this is how silly, but I literally thought, I'm going to, snap out of this, get the medicines, and I'm going to be on stage.
Right.
And of course, life had other plans for me, but yeah, it was, that weekend was quite scary. It was literally, I'd never been at that point in time just stopped in my tracks. Like, it was a total shutdown of my body. And, there really was nothing else nothing I could do, really. Right. I just had to sit and just trust the tests and the doctors and the nurses and, my family running around kind of trying to get me the care that I needed, around the clock. But yeah, when things like that happen, it changes you. It changes you forever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I read you went through chemotherapy, but then you even talked about treating cancer more as a chronic condition.
Yeah.
So let's go into that a little bit more.
Sure. So one of the interesting things was that because of my young age, I am and was a non-smoker. The doctors, my oncologist, just couldn't quite, it just seemed very weird of a profile to have lung cancer.
Right.
And I'd been pretty healthy up until that point. And so he was, he's one of those guys that I guess is very current with the research that's out there and whatnot. And he asked if we'd be willing to kind of send my tissue samples and whatnot to the States, to a company called Foundation One.
Yeah.
They are apparently, I've found out now that they're the gold standard for genetic testing. And so my samples were sent there. It takes about 2-3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And what they found is that I had a very rare genetic mutation of one particular gene. There are about 7 that could be candidates, and you only need 1 for this to be a situation where you can then not do chemo and do what they call targeted medicine, which is genetic therapy.
Yeah.
And luckily, I mean, and truly it was luck. I mean, it was fortunate. I had one of the genes, they found that. And I did the cycle of chemo because I had to wait 3 weeks. And they just didn't want me to, because I was actually stage 4, I forgot to mention. So
oh my gosh.
When I was diagnosed, I was stage 4. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. Lung cancer is the leading killer across the world. And you tend to only find out when you're stage 4.
Wow.
Yep. And the only symptom I had was a dry cough.
Yeah.
I mean, others may have some, other symptoms, but they're so innocent, these symptoms. You don't think it's something as sinister as, lung cancer. So I was stage 4, and therefore they wanted me to at least have some treatment while I was waiting to know if I could then have the genetic medicine. So when the results came in, that day itself, I was at the hospital and this is all in Dubai.
Yeah.
With my doctor, and I walked out of there with a month's supply of these capsules that are precision, targeted towards the particular mutation I have.
Wow.
And so unlike chemotherapy that goes actually both go all over your body, right? Yeah. I mean, they impact the whole body, but with this medication, they only seek the mutated cells.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So from a immune system perspective, it was a much better quality of life for me as I was coming out of this.
Right.
So that was, again, and I didn't know this. Like, I mean, you hear cancer and you always think, oh, chemotherapy, radiation. Now you hear more about immunotherapy. Mm-hmm. But I mean, science has come so far, and it's only because of this, there was this huge project, the Genome Project.
Yes.
It's because of that now there's so much out there, so much data out there, that there are, these medicines that exist that target just those rogue cells.
Wow.
And you can treat it like a chronic disease. Now, I don't believe that there is such a medicine for every type of cancer.
Correct. Yeah.
But they're working on it, and I do believe in future, like there's going to be more scope where this might be the future of how we deal with cancer, because it is one of the biggest killers.
This is so, I've never even heard of this before.
I was fascinated by it too. Like and that's why I put that in my, because the Gaggler is sort of a publication on wellness. So when I was interviewed, I wanted to put that out there because a lot of people think, oh, I've got cancer, I'm going to die.
Right.
And it's just, this opened up like the hope where, like it just, to know that you can manage it as a chronic disease and still enjoy your family, your life, your work. Like, I mean, it's just such a huge, like, I think that in itself helped my recovery.
Absolutely. I'm sure the mental aspect was amazing. And I mean, and we should talk about that a bit, because being in that state of mind, I can imagine there was just so much you had to do to mentally be strong, because the mind-body connection is so critical when you're healing. So what was that like for you?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it was the best it could be for me, honestly. Like I have no regrets. I mean, when I was told I had cancer, I was surrounded by my family. I had a doctor who, to be honest, I don't even think he kept calling it cancer. He said it was a malignancy. Like, I think even and I didn't realize, it took me, like, once I got home to, you rethink everything you went through over and over again. And I don't remember him saying, that it's, necessarily just cancer.
Cancer, right.
Like the malignancy. So just even the words, and, then with the genetic testing, et cetera. I mean, it was just, I had my family around me. I really did kind of go within much more. I've always been a spiritual person, but I literally, because I couldn't do anything else. Like I couldn't work. I couldn't even sit up. I mean, all I could do really was just put AirPods on and listen to, for me, spiritual music, because that really helps me.
Right.
And it's something that I've always practiced, but I mean, I basically ended up just doing that like all day long.
Yeah.
I couldn't even meditate. Like I couldn't even focus on anything. So things like that really helped me, I think, strengthen my mind.
Yeah.
And everyone around me was, all about, you're going to beat this.
Yeah.
And I believe that.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is, if I had this happen to me, maybe even 5 years ago, I think I would have been a person that would have said, why is this happening to me? And for whatever reason, and I have thought about this so often, that thought never occurred to me last year. Like, it was not like, why is this happening to me? Yeah. It was more of, there's something here for me to learn. Like, there's something here. This is happening to me for a reason.
Yeah.
What is that reason?
Join in the conversation. This podcast episode will be there. We have the 100-day micro moment challenge, self-care micro moment challenge, and the community is free to join. So visit us at community, find letter U, letter R, calm.com.
So it was more of an exploration within the cancer of what does this mean? Because see, up until that point, I'm a very driven person. I'm I set very high expectations for myself. I was a workaholic. I love to work. I say that I love my work.
Yeah.
And before this, I worked to the bone, like whatever it took to get that deliverable done, the deadline, whether it was the e-commerce store launch, etc.
Yeah.
And nothing could stop me.
Yeah.
And I finally got stopped.
Been there.
Do you know what I mean? And it was a wake-up call that that I had so much that I hadn't done because I just kept thinking, I'll just get this done and then I'll be free.
Yep.
To do that, family vacation of my dreams and not have to be on my phone. And, so but it all stopped.
Yeah. And then life just kept going. And
yeah.
So how have you changed post this experience? What are the benefits you feel have come out of that experience for you?
Yeah, I think, it's an ongoing, journey, to be honest. But I have certainly realized now that I could not continue working the way I had worked exclusively, and I needed to kind of bring in that balance into my life.
Yeah.
I rely more on my team, and I relied on them, quite a bit as it is. I always like to empower the team to kind of, be able to feel like they can make decisions and be part of the business. But now I've done it much more.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning, I don't wake up and look at my phone. I don't. I wake up earlier than most of my family. I go down and I spend the first hour, maybe even 2 hours, depending on when people, everyone wakes up. And it's all for me.
Yep.
I have the whole house to myself. I'll have my cup of coffee. I'll either read, something that enriches me from a personal development perspective, or maybe I'll meditate, or maybe I'll listen to spiritual music. But it's my time to do my stuff.
Yes.
And then my kids will get up and, breakfast, whatever, school. Once they're gone, then I look at my phone. What does my day look like?
Yeah.
And just having those 1 or 2 hours to myself, I think it sort of allows me to have a more peaceful ease into the day.
Yeah.
And I will not give that up for anything or anyone. So so that's like a non-negotiable now.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. It took me years to learn this, and my husband was constantly on me about taking this time. And that's where I came up with the micro moment, because I realized that I'm a workaholic. I do a lot. Yeah. I'm constantly on the go, and I have ideas and I'm trying to execute.
Yeah.
And taking that time to just breathe feels like a luxury sometimes.
Yeah.
And the micro moment helped me to start building a practice. So now, like you, I started getting up earlier. And during that time, I'm listening to a book. I'm meditating.
Yeah. Audiobooks. Yeah, you're right. Those are fantastic.
They're wonderful. Yeah. I read so much faster through audiobooks.
You can actually be on the treadmill and do an audiobook. It's
perfect, right? Right. So I've started doing that, and I have noticed a difference for me. I'm getting up much earlier. I'm not sleeping in, but it does help me to be more productive.
Yeah.
throughout the day. I feel like I get more done opposed to when I don't. Then I feel like I'm rushing.
Well, it's because you fill yourself up first.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So then, it's easier.
Absolutely.
So that was, a big change. And I think being more present, so like if I'm talking to you or one of my kids or whatever, I set aside the devices and I make eye contact and I actually have a conversation before it'd be like, okay, honey, sure, okay. Mm-hmm. And I don't do that anymore. It's not worth it. If this is what I'm doing, then this is what I'm doing. Exactly. And that'll wait. Yeah. So, my WhatsApp usage has gone down considerably. They're probably not happy about it. But seriously, I miss messages now. And people are like, where are you? I'm like, well, didn't get to it.
Yeah, I'm present. I'm doing this thing.
Yeah. Sorry. But so little things like that. Yeah. I'd say the biggest, the other change that I made is just really focusing on who I surround myself with, right? So a lot of, I think, at least, I don't know how you feel about this, but like I find that a lot of the stress that comes is, what they say is like, you are the company you keep.
1,000% agree with that. Yeah.
So on that same sort of concept, I just focus on being with people that make me feel good.
Yes.
Not that they just sit and say good stuff about me, but they just lift me up.
Yes.
And so those are the people I gravitate to. And it's funny how the universe works, but the more I do that, I meet such interesting people now.
I agree.
And it's fascinating that I would have never met these people, but now somehow I just feel like because that's maybe an intention that I've made, it just naturally, I just meet really interesting people.
Yeah, that's like that. You sent out the energy and expectation and that comes back to you. I agree. I agree with you 100%. I think especially as entrepreneurs, mothers, when you're on the go, having people that can help bring you up.
Yep.
But also fill you in a way where that's reciprocal.
Right.
Right. You're not going there to be an energy vampire and it's not the same in reverse, right?
Just have a good laugh.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I totally agree. So with all of that's happened, we go into 2023. And so like you said, the e-commerce came online for the Gaggler. Yep. So how has that transition been? Because we're in October now, practically November.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has it been going?
It's been going well. We've brought on newer, exciting brands like Decompression Realm. And it's been a good, I've learned so much.
Yeah.
I have a great team. No complaints, no regrets. Like I just love the journey that, I never thought it would be possible when I came home from the hospital that we'd actually launch.
Yeah.
And it's really because of my team. I actually can't even say I'm responsible for the launch because you
have a great team in
place.
I
really didn't do, I couldn't even sit up, and do a Zoom call. Like that's how bad it was. So, I'm just so grateful. I'm just so grateful that, the universe has sent me such a great team and we've come this far.
Yeah.
This would not have been a reality otherwise,
That is wonderful. So you have about 30,000 readers per month. How has the impact been for the women-based audience? How have they, interpreted the Gaggler? Do they find it as like a go-to piece for them? What is like the impact that you've seen that you've had?
Well, I hope so. So before earlier, we used to do events, so it was a lot easier to kind of gauge the impact because we were physically together and bringing people together. I had to put that on hold in January just because I just didn't have the energy to do events. But I would hope that the impact from the blog is still there. We're seeing the readership every month grow. Yeah. So I do think that there's impact there.
Absolutely.
It's harder to see, obviously.
Yes.
What I mean? But hopefully maybe one day, maybe 2024 will be the year that we go back and we launch events again, So let's see.
Yes.
But I really, that aspect of the business I really love because you could literally talk to people and they'd say how they enjoyed reading or like how an article in particular led them to maybe think about a particular practice or, therapy for them that they'd never even knew existed in Dubai.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, like, there's so many wellness options in the UAE.
There are.
And I mean, more than I think I've ever even, like, if I were in the US, I don't know if I'd even have access to as much. But I just feel like we have such entrepreneurial people, and really, it's a very exciting place to be able to kind of, get to know yourself better through, working with different practitioners. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
The alternatives to traditional medicine.
I love how open it seems to be becoming. And there's so many, and that's why part of the reason we started Find Your Calm, because we realized like you've got yoga people here and you've got treatments here and you've got this here and you've got that, but there wasn't anything bringing them completely together for all people, men and children as well. So when I heard what you were doing with a Gaggler, I was like, this is perfect alignment, right? Because if you can heal women, you heal the family.
Oh, I agree.
Right?
I agree 100%. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It really is. It has been a very great synergistic partnership, and I'm definitely looking forward. We should definitely talk about doing events together, because I think that would be
2024.
I think that would be fantastic. So, you have a consistent practice that you've talked about. And it's helped you to, deal with the chronic issue that you've had. What would be your advice for someone going through a chronic condition right now? Like what would you tell them to do to help keep that mind-body connection so that they can get to that other side of it all?
Oh, I mean, I think first of all, I would say, and of course it's going to vary depending on the circumstance of the person, but I think the first thing is to know really, like, within yourself, like, that there are options, I mean, I have a newfound appreciation for the human body. I mean, and this is where education, reading whatever you can that's out there, whether it's Google, whether it's, I mean, if you can't afford workshops and seminars with well-known healers or whatever, or therapy sessions, there's Google. I mean, it's free.
Yeah.
And I know what they say, like, you have to be careful what you
Dr.
read,
Google.
but read more than one reference. And, we're smart enough to know what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But the human body really is magnificent. I mean, it is a machine. It can do so much. It can create chemicals on demand to heal you. And we just don't know about it because, we're conditioned to think, oh, if you're sick, go to the doctor, you've got to take this medicine, right. And sometimes that is, that's what you've got to do. Like, I've got to take this medicine. I mean, yes, I'd like to be off my cancer medication, but it's keeping me alive. It's allowing me to have a normal life. I'm going to do it.
Right.
But I'm also going to do other things to, strengthen me from the inside out.
Yes.
So I think the first piece of advice I would give is just go out there and read. There are free resources, and that's one of the reasons why, like, even with our blog, like, there's no paywall. Right. It's free.
It's free.
I mean,
thank you for that.
No, but I mean, knowledge should be. Why not?
Right.
There's so much out there. So yeah, definitely, like, look at all your resources and know that there are options.
Yeah.
Because that, it's like the placebo or the nocebo effect, right? It's you've got to know that there's hope that, that you can change things in order to change things.
Correct.
So yeah, that'd be my first piece of advice. And the second, I think, is, and I say this just because of my experience, last year, but, making sure you have the appropriate advocate, right? So for example, if you have something as significant as cancer or some other disease, you're not well enough to advocate for yourself.
Correct.
Like, I had my husband, my family, kind of running back and forth between nurses and doctors, because they're human too, and they've
Absolutely.
got, they're not ignoring you. They just got a lot to do. But they would run around to make sure I got, like, my meds on. If it was time for that injection, okay, like, the nurse is coming.
Yeah.
We've told her, she's on her way. Have that advocate. I mean, if your condition is less serious, then, I mean, an advocate could even be like a coach, like there are health coaches that can steer you in the right way. So always have an advocate, I think that's important. Mentorship is not just for the corporate world. Like, I feel like you've got to have that advocacy, mentorship in every aspect of your life.
Yeah. I think those are some really great nuggets. You wouldn't think about having an advocate as you go through a health journey beyond your primary care physician or, your direct healer, but you kind of need different modalities to look at. And I think that that being able to cover and have that kind of conversation to say conventional medicine has its place, but so does the more ancient principles as well.
Absolutely.
What are you most excited about in this coming year?
To be honest, I'm actually really excited to celebrate Christmas with my family. I didn't think that would be possible. So for me, I'm focusing on that very near-term celebration. I'm just excited about life. I mean, I'm excited that, I have many more years. I mean, if you'd asked me this last year, it would be like, it'd be some, business goal or something like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, now I'm just excited about life.
Right. Wow. That's so powerful. It's so simple, but so beautiful.
But that's all there is. Like, we don't realize, I mean, we're so like, how do we breathe? Right. Like,
you don't think about it. You just do.
We just do. Yeah. But that's what's amazing.
Yeah. There's so much intentionality behind the way you are living your life. And I really think people are going to be inspired by this, to know that if, they're dealing with a cancer issue, there are other methodologies. You can, even if you don't have the right advocates around you right now, you can hear this and say, well, what else is there?
Yeah.
So I think that's so important. So I'll get with you after, because I want to put that link to the foundation and just anything else that could potentially help people going through this right now. I think
that'd be great.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, this has been so enlightening. It really has been. It's been truly so wonderful getting to know you better. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being so authentic. I really do appreciate that.
Absolutely. I mean, thanks for having me. It's always nice to kind of, I want to create more awareness. I feel like, at least from the cancer, I mean, there are a lot of resources and events that happen around the year, but I think more than that, it should be talked about, as much as it can be, because it's impacting people every day. Yeah, we got to get you in the community. I think you'd be a fantastic advocate, and just maybe a general coach, just to give the advice. Oh, absolutely. We would love to. We would love that. Yeah. This episode has been brought to you by Decompression Realm. Please visit us at www.decompressionrealm.com.